Anywho, enough about my stuff. Let's talk about you. So I guess we'll start with our first question, which is like a four-part question. Um, what is your name? What are your pronouns? What is your ethnicity? And who are you?
Okay, I'm Josephine Chiang. I use they pronouns. I am Taiwanese Japanese. And who am I? What a question. I am an actor. I am a queer, non-binary Taiwanese American. Those are my categories.
Amazing.
You
Love
know?
that. And I'm interested to hear in how you got started in acting, with that very interesting background that you just mentioned. How did you first get your start? How did you kind of know that it was your thing? I don't know. Did you have a moment where you were like, just like, this is for me? Like, how did it all start for you?
Definitely. I grew up doing community theater. I was that actually when I was 3 years old at church. I like for some reason was so inclined to do all the little musicals and plays that was going on. But it was always sort of a hobby. And then I was convinced that I was going to be a lawyer. So I, mhm.
You were
I
convinced,
went,
or your parents were convinced? Or
what?
both? You were convinced, or your parents were convinced?
Yeah, both.
I know how it goes. Yeah.
Um, and so I remember I went to my fifth grade career day dressed in a little lawyer suit. And that's what I went into college thinking. Then in 2018, I was taking a theater class I went to UC Berkeley. I was taking a theater class there. The same time I was taking a class on the power of the apparatus of the camera. I majored in rhetoric and media studies. Had not much to do with acting or theater. But somehow those two things combined, plus the fact that I think I was having a very difficult semester where I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. And I think those things all clicked together. I felt that the rare times I was the most present in myself and in my body was when I was acting in that theater class. And along with this class about, I don't know, the power of the apparatus of the camera, things like the Crazy Rich Asians trailer had just come out. And so I think more and more things were coming out where I was like, I think I feel really passionate about joining this movement of Asian actors that are wanting to show themselves on screen. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's cool that I also sort of discovered acting, I guess you could say, for myself in college, and I'm always excited to hear that of people who, I guess, have that realization. I guess like a little bit later on. But I guess so. You were kind of a theater kid, like growing up, in a sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, got you. Did you do it in like high school and like middle school and
Mm-hmm.
all the way? Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's exciting. I think it's exciting for me to hear stories of like people who also were like in a class in college, and then they just had that moment. They're like, wait a minute, I think I can do this. Because I feel like it's like you're on your own, and you don't have like, obviously you're still listening to your parents, but you're kind of like, I can make choices for myself, and I can like go
Yeah.
this way or that way, and so it kind of like opens doors. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And you
Yeah, it
went to
was
Cal.
scary. What?
You went to Cal, and I am actually from Berkeley, so
Really?
go Bears, yes.
Oh my God, from the town Berkeley.
From the town Berkeley. I did not go to Cal. Did
That's
not have
so
the
cool.
GPA.
I love Berkeley and it's
Yes.
such a special place in my heart.
Yes. And tell us about that. So how was your time there? How was the acting program there? Because it's not a program that I know much about.
Mm.
So yeah, what did you gain from your 4 years there?
Yeah, like I said, I majored in rhetoric and media studies, so I was like reading theory all 4 years.
Right.
The acting program, I just took a few classes in, so I can't speak 100% to it, but I think it was much less interested in following a particular school or, I don't know, it wasn't like Stanislavski or Udhagen, it was just however, whatever professor you got put with that semester was the one that you learned from. Yeah, I think what that gave me was just like permission to explore and not take it too seriously, because it didn't seem too daunting, like I had to choose a particular scholar to learn all my acting craft from or something like that. And like I said, it helped me because it wasn't too intensive of a theater program. I, who didn't major in theater at all, was able to just like come in, take a class, and then I realized, that's what I wanted to do.
Amazing. And so after Cal, well, yeah. Do you have anything else to say about like living in the Bay Area or that experience? Like, how was that for you? I'm always curious about. I guess you're not from the Bay Area.
I'm not from the Bay Area, but I grew up in Taiwan. But I would go to the South Bay every summer because my aunt and my best friend live there. So I spent a lot of time there. I love it. I love the Bay. I would raise a family there.
Yes. Okay. Wonderful. What's your favorite thing about it? Or your best memory or whatever.
No, that's a great question. My favorite thing, especially now that I've lived in New York for a bit, is how many varieties of plants are all around. Like every single house in Oakland or Berkeley has a different tree in front of it. It's gorgeous and beautiful.
You have to have that. People take their front gardens very seriously.
So seriously, it's causing the drought, maybe.
A little, yeah. It is, and people get a little pretentious about it, especially in certain neighborhoods in Berkeley. But we won't. We'll save that conversation for a different day. But yeah, that's great. That's great to hear. That's amazing. So went to Cal. How did you make the transition then to step into like the professional realm after your 4 years there?
Yeah, I think in my junior year, when I realized I wanted to do acting, I started to just really put myself out there and audition for short films. Actually, the first film I ever booked was a feature film. I don't think I understood the value of a feature film back then, so I'm so grateful I had that experience. But yeah, I just started acting in various things. And then I took a few years right after grad and into the pandemic to work at a few tech companies. And then I moved to New York because I think I always knew that even though I was taking a brief detour into the career field of tech, that I would always come back to acting. And so I moved to New York knowing that I would come back to that here. So I moved here about 2.5 years ago, quit my full-time job, and started acting here again. And same thing, just like really, I'm sure putting myself out there, creating your little profiles on all the platforms, and self-submitting, talking to people and seeing what sticks.
Amazing. And you've had a lot of success. And we'll get into all of those. We'll get into your resume in a moment. But I'm also curious in your, I guess, your 4 or 5 years after graduation, how have you continued like studying in classes? Are you sort of just like learning on the job? How have you continued like your training?
Yeah. When I first got to New York, I think I felt a lot of pressure to do a studio. So I joined a few Meisner studios. The last one I did was William Esper. Because those studios were so time intensive, I think they ask for your full commitment, and it's hard to also take work when you're there. And I was finding that, and I was so grateful for this, but I was getting more momentum with work than I expected. And so it didn't seem to make sense to put that work on hold to be able to do 2 years of a conservatory. Obviously, so many people have different viewpoints on this, and so many people come out of those conservatories just like with that surefire confidence that they'll be able to get on the job and hit the right notes. But I think I just felt like I felt the ground moving beneath me, and I was like, it's time to run with it and not put myself through more schooling just because I felt like that was the path that people were taking.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm curious about when you're on set. Now, getting into like the nitty gritty of like your kind of acting technique. When you're on set, or when you're on stage, because you also do theater. I guess what approach do you sort of use? Because you were talking about how you at Cal you didn't necessarily subscribe to one particular, I guess, acting tradition. So what techniques are you sort of using, or are you sort of just in the flow and sort of just reacting and sort of following instincts? Like what is your approach?
Yeah. It's hard. I don't think I have a surefire approach. I think I've definitely learned on the job. I think there have been some key directors that I've worked with that have really pushed me into some breakthroughs. I try to be pretty instinctual and reactive, so I put a lot of trust in my relationship with my scene partner to do that. I think I draw from a variation of things from my own life to do substitution, or just placing myself in the scenario. I like to I don't know, make sure I'm really connected with the things on set. So if I'm sensing extra energy, there's something I can go to play with. And I think those are all great things about being able to learn on the job, is you're not in a black box theater, just spinning around your own head.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Although we love black box theaters. That's a fun place to act.
Yes, of course.
And what these days do you prefer? Because you've done a lot of film lately.
Yeah.
Are you still interested in doing theater? Is there one medium that you prefer, you feel more comfortable in? What's sort of your wheelhouse?
I'm focusing on film for now. I'm trying to do one theater production a year just because it's so fun, and it just uses a completely different set of muscles that I think is so important for an actor. But I really love film. I love how it's so much about your relationship to the camera and to everyone else on set. I think the technicalities of it really interest me, of how many factors are going into your performance. For example, what the shot is, how close or far the camera is from you, even down to needing to hit your marks here, there, and there. Just all the little calculations that go into it is such an interesting exercise for me, sometimes just as fun as getting in and doing the scene and point blank acting.
Yeah, for sure. Who have been some of the directors that you've worked with that if you'd like to name drop, who have you enjoyed the most? and what in particular did you like about working with them, and what are some of the notes that, if you can remember anything?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I need to pull up my own notes. I don't remember everyone. Off the top of my head, the Bayless brothers, Ryan Bayless up in Hudson.
I've heard of them.
Ryan was so good in just, I think, asking me to be so intimate with my performance. And he held such a zen feeling on set that I really could just feel like it was just between me and my scene partner. I think it was the deepest I've gone into muttercore. And it was liberating to learn to act like that. And then, of course, you slowly build out from it, because not everything can be that right. It's a nightmare for your sound guy. Let's see.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else come to mind? Or any other acting teachers that you've had in the city who have really done it for you?
Jono Creefield, that he's at Emerson right now, but he brought me on as the lead for a feature that he wrote called What Are We? And it was a beast of a script. The moment I read it, I was like, I have to do this. This is an actor's dream, to have this script in front of them. And it is a story about how this couple lives in this world where you can go into one person's body. So in the story, me and my boyfriend choose to go into my body, And I think the most fun part for me was working with our movement director, Mars Garcia, excellent movement director if anyone ever needs one, to work out what it looks like when two minds and two souls are trying to work within one physical body. And so maybe, you know, one character leads with their chest and another like interrupts with their head. And so what does it look like when you disagree or agree about doing something? And Jono was just, I don't think I've seen a director with so much heart. He just like had such a deep relationship with his characters, and it would take everything in him to not like come and just like do the entire like play out the role for me. But it was really cool just to see like, I don't know, how much of him was in both characters. And I think that's something that I really appreciate as well.
A good script always helps.
Yeah. And a bad script, no one can say.
Yeah. Not helpful.
No.
So speaking of scripts, is there a style of like film or genre that you feel most comfortable in, that's sort of your wheelhouse? If you can even sort of, you know, encapsulate what different styles sort of look like. Is there sort of like a niche that you feel like you can really fill really well?
Totally. I've enjoyed doing like realism. I think it's just fun to feel like it's everyday life. But under an extreme circumstance, I think those are always the most fun things to play out. Is like, and sci-fi films do this really well, where it's just like, we're in a crazy world, something crazy is happening, and how can we make it feel as grounded and realistic as possible?
Right.
I don't get a lot of those roles. I would say I always say I have a triangle of roles that I really quickly was like cast into, and it always, any role I get is like two of the three, and it's queer, Asian, and victim.
Oh no. Do you think there's a correlation between the three? Oh no.
Yeah, I'm like,
uh-oh.
like the amount of films I've done where I'm grieving a dead mom. My mom is alive. Or like, I don't know, just like something tragic is always happening to me. I guess I give, this person's gone through some shit.
Gravitas, right? You have gravitas.
Thank you, Chase. That's really kind. It's a kind way of putting it, rather than I just give off a depressing vibe.
Hey, listen, we all gotta have our niche. You know what I mean? We all gotta have our niche. But what would you like to play to sort of, I guess, like get outside of your comfort zone in the future?
I would love to play, and may have a role in the pipeline, where I get to play a queer Asian that is like happy. That's all I want. And in independent, you know, not too influenced by their parents. Anything in that camp. And I think something that's interesting is I want to do more like day player roles, or like character acting, where you can just come on, be a really specific character, instead of being like the main character that has to be the audience surrogate or like groundedness of the film. I just want to come on, do something silly, crazy, kooky, and then leave set, you know.
Have you done comedy? Yeah.
No, like stand up.
No, but like just comedic roles, or yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would love to do more comedic roles and more likable characters.
Happy queer Asians, because we're not all depressed, at least not all the time, right? We do have some good days, right? Like you had a good day today.
Sometimes, yeah. Like today we had a good one. Maybe in 2 weeks we'll have another. I'm kidding.
But like, So do you think there's something there though? Do you think there's maybe just a limitation on like the roles for especially queer Asian folks that are like they expect all of us to be depressed all the time, be going through all this trauma, like
Yes.
very unhappy. Like, do you think
Yes.
that's something that you've seen in a lot of the roles that you've been in?
Absolutely. Yeah.
No disrespect to any of the screenwriters.
No, not at all. I mean, I feel like there's a debate out there about what kind of queer films we want, whether or not we want to keep with the coming out narratives, the heavier narratives, or if we want something like Bottoms that's so fun and light. And I think we should just keep having both, you know?
What's
It's
Bottoms?
really,
I haven't seen that.
you have to
No.
see it. Yeah,
What
it's
is it?
really good. It's Rachel Sennett and Iowa Debris. They start a fight club to hook up with the hottest girls in school.
Oh, okay.
It's a
Okay,
great time.
I'll put that on my list. Cool. I don't know why I haven't heard of that yet. Must be out of the loop. But yeah, right. I think that's great. That you say that. Like Fire Island kind of came to mind as you were
Yeah,
super
just
happy.
sweet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. More stuff like that. That's what we need for 2023 and 2024. But speaking of casting, like, what has your experience been with casting as a queer person, as a non-binary person? Has there been any challenges for you in sort of putting yourself out for roles? What have you sort of discovered in the process?
Definitely tough. I think as a pretty femme presenting person, I still self-submit and, get submitted for a lot of female characters, cis female characters. And that's not at all something I want to shut myself off from. I think a lot of those stories I really resonate with and I want to keep helping to bring to life. I think what's been difficult for me is making sure to stay real with myself and not push myself too far in taking characters that are so far from my gender presentation that I don't feel good on set. But in the same way, gender is performance, all the world's a stage, blah, blah. Those are fun. Those are things that are fun to perform too, like femininity is fun to perform. But yeah, I do think that's something that I think I'll have to keep working on in my acting career, is knowing and figuring out my own boundaries with that. And I think I hope the film industry works hard going forward to make genderqueer people and non-binary people feel good and safe playing roles that are not of their gender identity. I think I've always had a really hard time asking for what I need in this regard because I'm unsure of my own gender identity every day, and that's always evolving. So I don't know what to ask for. I don't know how much pronouns matter to me and if I want to correct someone about them. But I think what really I'm trying to keep in mind is if a director is casting me, if a casting director wants me, it's for all of me, and my queerness and my gender queerness is a part of that. Maybe you liked a certain masculinity that I brought to the female character, or if it was a really femme TikTok influenced character, maybe you liked the extra bit of performance that you felt there, because that doesn't come naturally to me, And so with that, like, I don't know, if you're casting me and asking me to be a part of your story, my gender queerness is something that I want to have people hold to. And so I think I just want productions to continue to be cognizant of that. Like, ask your actors, Like when we're not rolling, what are things I can do or the production team can do to make you feel affirmed, whether it's like pronouns or, I don't know, talking with the costume department or makeup artist, things like that. I think there's a long way we can go in how to make people feel more comfortable on set. And I think also really keeping in mind that what one genderqueer person asks for or says is okay. Like, for example, I usually say, I use they pronouns, but if you're talking about the character that's female, feel free to use she. It helps me get character anyway. But some directors have taken that to project it onto other non-binary people, and I'm like, I don't speak for everyone, you know? We're all going to have different relationships with our gender and what we need to feel good. And I think like the non-binary identity is, of course, such a big and broad one, and we're figuring out all the nuances within that. So that's my super long spiel about everything that I have to say there.
No, that was amazing. That was very insightful. And I'm interested to hear, like, are these conversations that you've also had with like your agents, with like, oh, hello. Was that me?
Sorry, that was a text that I got. My bad.
A very excitable text. It was like ding, like I love it. Hello, happy birthday. Yeah, are these conversations that you've had with like your agents, casting directors? Like how have you had those conversations? Have they been slightly uncomfortable at times, or how have you like approached that?
That's a good question. If I feel comfortable enough with the director, that's something that I'll bring up with the director or the producer. And most of the people that I've worked with, I've been really lucky in that they are wonderful people that have always made me feel really taken care of. But I do think I don't always speak up, and I will defer to just kind of like bodying it for the day and then going home and talking with my partner about it or asking a friend about it and getting their thoughts. I think maybe that comes from a place of like, I don't want to make an ask that feels like it's like on behalf of the non-binary community. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
We would like to extend the information.
Yeah. We have
like the scroll and like.
Yeah. So maybe that's why, I don't know, and I do think it's just hard to ask for what you need a lot of the time. So that's something that I want to continue to work on.
If you could give any piece of advice to any, I guess, genderqueer actor out there who maybe is at the start of their journey, who's a little nervous, who's going to start submitting, start looking for work, start talking to agents, whatever, blah, 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 and they're unsure of how to go about doing the thing, what advice could you give them?
To not be afraid to bring their artistry and genderqueerness to the role. I think oftentimes when we read the sides for a part, it's easy to picture what does the casting director want from this.
Right.
But I've been told again and again, what's important is we want your perspective on it. And my perspective is going to be a bit of a fruity perspective, you know? So if I'm auditioning for a mom role and there's no dad in the picture, I'm a lesbian mom. I'm mother and father, you know? And that's the perspective that I'm going to bring to the role. And I would just encourage everyone to say that there's plenty of room for that out there, and people want to see what your artistry looks like.
That's amazing. And this is one thing that I think every queer actor that I've literally talked to does this. We make all of our characters gay.
We have to. I don't know how to be straight. How do you do
That's the one thing that we all do.
that?
Yeah. But we're not a monolith, but that we all share that one thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. That's great, and that's great advice. Um, yeah, even if you're in a Marvel movie, make Captain Marvel queer. But Captain Marvel is pretty queer though.
Super.
Maybe that's
Yeah.
Iron Man. Make Iron Man gay. Like, I guess that role's dead. Anyways, but that bad example. But yeah, go off. Like yeah, like
Exactly. Go
bring
off.
yourself to the role.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you mentioned this a moment ago,
Mm.
but like about in terms of like going out for certain roles in the future, or even now, what kind of roles excite you? What kind of characters do you get really excited to play, and what kind of I guess also what kind of stories do you get excited to be a part of and tell?
Mm. I do love anything that has to do with my identity. Um, I think, of course, people shouldn't be pigeonholed, but I do think that's why I wanted to come into this industry, is to tell stories about Asian and queer experiences. And so those scripts always really excite me. Um, I am so huge romantic, and I love anything that's about all the different forms I think love can take and the disintegration of love. I love really interesting scripts about queer relationships and all the complications there. My God, they're so complicated and beautiful. And I love any script that tries to tackle an aspect of that. And then I want to do more comedic roles or roles that require movement training. I think either of those are really fun and get you out of your body more.
Cool. Yeah. Have a lot of your film roles, been very like sort of movement based and sort of like, very like, I guess all acting is movement based, but like when in which you've had to use like very like broad sort of like movements.
No.
Yeah.
The one that I talked about earlier, What Are We, with the couple that became one, that one we did months of movement training for. Um, and I loved doing that. It was so fulfilling to spend a lot of time thinking about how I move and how I want to bring that onto screen. And I would love to do more of that. I'm like not a dancer in the least. I did not do sports growing up. So I'm like not movement inclined in any way, but I think that's why I really loved it, was it taught me something new. And it just got me out of my head.
Nice. Very
Yeah.
cool. Very, very cool. And that's cool that even, I even find that even in the, when you're on camera and doing, I guess, very like scaled down sort of work, very like, close up, very
Mm.
specific sort of stuff even your movement training in those moments like really kicks in. So you can sort of like just like turn on in those moments. I still find that it works, even if you're not like doing like crazy shit like this. It always, there's always a way to like make that come to life.
Yeah,
Um,
you're right. It should always be about the whole body.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So I guess in looking out into the future, I don't know, 10 years, 20 years, however far you want to go.
Okay.
Where would you like for your career to go from here? What are what are your wildest dreams, and how would you like them to come true?
Yeah. I would love to be on the big screen. Yeah, I think I want to do this for the rest of my life, and that's the best way I see how. I'm happy to be corrected if someone is like, this is another lucrative way you can act full time. But from what I see, I'm like, I want to be on the big screen. I want to be doing, I don't know, hopefully like an indie film that blows up. I wouldn't say no to a Marvel movie even.
Speaking of Captain Marvel, I was gonna say you could do that. You could rock that, right?
Oh my God, thank you. I'm obsessed with Marvel in
Yeah.
a way that you wouldn't expect.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about it then.
No, I love action, and I think it's because it's brainless. You can turn your mind off and just watch people fight. When I first moved to New York, like 2 years ago, I was watching Marvel's Agents of Shield,
Yeah.
and before bed one night, I was just like playing around with my partner, and I attempted to run up the side of our bedroom wall, how they do in action movies. And then, of course, like sprained my neck.
You serious?
Like a light sprain.
Did you like fall on your head?
Oh, okay. To be clear, I was on our bed.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did like this from the bed. So soft landing, but you know.
So that is not any of the young queer actors who are listening to this. That is not do not do that. Do not do that. Yes.
And Marvel, don't listen to that either. With some movement training, I can be whoever you want me to be. I can run up walls.
Well, who's your favorite Marvel superhero?
That's a really hard question. I don't know if I have a favorite like that. What's yours? Do you have one?
I'm not so into it. Like off the top of my head, I think Iron Man is cool, but I just think maybe I just like Robert Downey Jr.'s performance in that.
He's so fun in that.
Yeah, maybe the character is not that cool. I don't really know. I didn't really like read the comic books, but I still maintain that like the first Iron Man is like one of like the best. I think it's severely underrated. Like a really good movie. For me, it has to be like in the top 3 of them all.
Yeah.
Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shang-Chi 2 is coming out. That has some Asians in it, right?
Really? Just some. Just a few.
we need to figure out a way to get you in that. So maybe we can try for it. Yeah. We'll put out a shout out. All right. So yeah. So speaking of projects, you have a lot of exciting stuff coming up. What can you tell us? What do you have to gatekeep? But yeah, what do you have coming up?
There is I'm trying to think. What can I share? There's like a satirical comedy called Springs, directed by Morgan Maine, who's done a lot of set design, and stars my co-star John Hendrick, who is a great comedian. That one was so fun to film. We filmed it in the East Hamptons in March, and it's going to be making its festival rounds soon. I'm really excited about that one. It was super fun to play. It's about, I won't say what it's about. I'll let people go watch it. But it was funny, and it was queer, and that's all I ask for. Yeah.
In the Hamptons, of all places, to be
in
funny and queer.
the Hamptons, yeah.
Okay.
Which was definitely part of the setting, for sure.
Amazing.
And there's this film called One Day I'll Open My Fist that I did with Dylan Rizzo, also back in March this year, a short that is headed into post-production that I'm really excited about. We shot the whole thing on film. I think it's going to be really beautiful.
Nice.
And it's really dynamic.
Yeah. And anything about the 2 projects that you recently booked that I heard about?
Okay, let's think.
I don't mean to press.
All good.
Curiosity is.
The feature was directed by a Beijing-based director. She's done a lot of TV shows and movies out in Beijing, and she just wanted to make something in LA. Mm-hmm. It's called Not That Rich. It's based off of a YA novel. It's kind of Asian Gossip Girly, but I'm not sure where that one is. You know what their plans with it are. But it was super fun to shoot. It's probably like the biggest set that I've ever worked on.
Wow.
And I met some wonderful people through it. The other one, Oh, okay. I'm like, can I?
Did you speak Mandarin for that role? Was this a Mandarin speaking role?
No, I didn't. Oh, no, I didn't for this one.
Okay. Have you in past projects that you've done?
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Although if a script does come to me entirely in Mandarin, I am like, I can't. I
No.
don't have the patience to read through this whole thing. I wish I could, but
And
yeah.
I didn't ask you about that. How is being also a bilingual actor? Like is there a language you feel more comfortable doing certain things in, and like what is that experience like?
It's really fun to do bilingual roles because I think there are parts of me that I can only access in Mandarin, and it's a really different language.
Right.
What is your ethnicity, Chase?
I'm half Chinese, half white. I'm a Asian.
Okay, okay. Do you speak any Mandarin?
No, no,
Okay,
unfortunately not. And I'm Cantonese, and I don't speak any Cantonese. I do speak Spanish though, randomly,
amazing.
because
Yeah.
I used to live in South America, and I used to
Uh,
act in Spanish, but it was all like me just struggling to survive because it's a second language. So,
I
yeah,
feel you.
yeah,
I feel you.
yeah.
Um, there are just parts of Mandarin that I think are a lot more intimate
Mm-hmm.
and casual. There's like it feels less formal. English is like really clipped, and Mandarin, at least in a Taiwanese accent, is really fluid. It's really cutesy, and so it's just fun to be able to access different parts of yourself that come out with different languages.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. We're looking forward to seeing all these projects that are coming up.
Great.
How last but not least, how do we get in touch with you? Like online, social media, contacts, info. Where can we
Yeah.
find you?
Awesome. You can find me on Instagram at Josephine Yuting, which is my Chinese name and middle name. Josephine, Josephine Yuting. I also have a website, josephinechiang.com.
Cool.
I think that's it.
Amazing.
But follow me on Instagram for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah.